Welcome everybody to this CHAMP webinar on One Record, how to get started with One Record. What is One Record and what are the benefits to the air cargo community? Good afternoon, good morning or good evening. My name is Bart Haasbeek. I am based in Amsterdam and I am CHAMP's Head of Corporate Marketing, PR and Events. This is the second webinar of the series of 3 where we will discuss how to get started with One Record. During the previous webinar, we discussed what is One Record and why is it beneficial to us. And as mentioned, the rollout of One Record is a marathon, not a sprint. Let's discuss some ground rules. Let me also check if the screen is visible. So the duration of the webinar is 1 hour. Normally we organize webinars for 45 minutes, but this is such an important subject that we organize 1 hour. The audience is everybody in the supply chain, as One Record is applicable to all in the supply chain. You will receive a recording of the webinar later on after the webinar, and also some links to some additional information. And please use the tool if you have any questions, and we will raise the questions during the webinar, or we will get back to you after the webinar via email. And if you would like to reach out to us to learn more, please do, and we will follow up also after the webinar with you. So we have a packed agenda, but let me first introduce the team, and I will also raise a question to each in the team. From CHAMP, please allow me to introduce Nemil, Senior Product Manager, Cargo Portals and APIs. Henk Mulder, Head of Digital Cargo at IATA. Andress, Head of Cargo Digital at Cathay Cargo. And Riege, Chief Technology Officer at Riege Software. They will tell us more about how to get from momentum to exponential growth with One Record. So before we move on to the agenda, let me raise some questions to each of you. So Henk, during the previous webinar, I asked you, what is One Record? And is this not another buzzword? And now I ask you, is One Record shaping up to what you envisioned it to be?
So the vision that we have is far-reaching, and we haven't seen that yet. I think we still have a lot to get to, but we've certainly achieved to get to a point where we should be at the moment. So we're very happy with the progress, and there's still a long way to go.
Perfect, indeed. So Nemil, we will learn why CHAMP is the ideal One Record partner during this webinar. Could you already explain a little bit on that in a short paragraph or sentence?
So I think I can give you 3 reasons, Batyan. The first one is CHAMP is an expert at air cargo. We only do air cargo. Second is that we are one of the most connected companies in air cargo. And third is we are experts at APIs and all things that connect the air cargo supply chain. So we can extend all of these to give any company a really good start for One Record.
Perfect. Okay, let's learn more about that during the webinar. So Andress, for Cathay Pacific, where do you see the, or Cathay Cargo, where do you see the quickest win on One Record? Is that with your customers on the forwarder side, or is this with your ground handlers?
I think the quickest win for us is our customers, for the freight forwarders, because they will be able to receive the information in a more quick manner, and there will be more data that we can share with them. So I think it's definitely the freight forwarders. for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I raised that question because there are so many freight forwarders and much less ground handlers to work with, so that may be easier for you to roll out. But indeed, the sooner you get your data from the forwarders, the better it flows through the pipeline. Christian, a bit of a tricky question for you. With the adoption of one record, how do you see the role of the CCS in the future?
Yes, good morning, Batjan. The role of the CCS will change. It will be the message passing that we've been using for the last 40 to maybe even 50 years. That is a thing of the past with one record. So we will definitely see changes. What direction it will take, that is going to be interesting to monitor in the future.
Okay, now yeah, we are a CCS in Champ, so let's show you how we're going to do this, and we're also facilitating this change. So let's go to the agenda. Henk will kick off in a minute, explaining about the one record storyline and the rollout, where we're going. Then how to get started, Champ's one NeoConnect supernode, and Nemil will explain how to get started and which steps to take to be able to get started. Cathay Cargo, ready for one record, some sample use cases. Then Christian will explain more about Riege's view, Riege's software view, and a call to the community to join the One Record initiative. And we finalize with YChamp, and Nemil already mentioned it a little bit. And we will have some questions and answers and a summary of the webinar. So if you have any questions, audience, please reach out to us using the tool and we will raise them. So let's go to our first speaker, Henk Mulder. Henk, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bart-Jan. And thank you for the invitation. I think this is a great opportunity to get some more information about this. Let me tell you a little bit about the storyline of One Record, and really the underlying message here is it's about the momentum you were referring to earlier. At the top, you can see the actual storyline where we go from a proposal through stakeholder engagement, etc., all the way to a point where we can see One Record to be in production. And one of the things that may be easy to forget now is that when we started in 2017, the industry was literally only talking about e-airway build. It was the only topic at the Digital Cargo Conference back then. And so we've come a long way from there. And a lot of that really involved stakeholders and what are they focusing on? You know, when you come with a proposal like One Record, it really is quite revolutionary, and revolution often is not a good thing. And so people are very careful before they commit. And now we're at the other end of that story where the industry is really looking at, well, what are my value opportunities in One Record? And so the conversation has shifted a lot. The very fact that we're having a webinar with the panelists that we have here, hosted by Champ, is a testimony to how far we've come from an idea to an implementation in the industry with one of the major solution providers. If you look at some of the details, you can see that momentum build up, but number one has always been around stakeholder engagement and governance, which is key in this industry when you're looking at the global industry. Data model from the very start, we did a lot of work on that, and you can see the progression through the various versions, where at the moment version 3 is a very stable version, which is absolutely capable of supporting the industry and everything that it needs. It's very stable, it won't change very often. API, similar story with version 2, perfectly capable of supporting everything that needs to be done. And you go on, we did pilots, we have done a whole series of hackathons, of which we're very proud. I'm carrying the t-shirt here, as is Christian. The reason I put hackathons there is that they are one of the smartest ways to get started with One Record. It's really hands-on, you're there with people that have done the job before. So fantastic opportunities. We'll talk about the next hackathon in Dublin a little bit later. Documentation, it might be surprising that it comes a little bit later. Initially, our specifications were the documentation, but now we're really sort of getting to the point where we have mature guides and we're developing manuals. Open source is now a key element in One Record. The standard itself is open source, but we now also have an open source version of a One Record server, the Neon server developed by the DTAC in Germany, and some tools that we can use to develop data models called Neon Play. And actually mean that currently I'm also in a workshop with the people that are extending Neon Play facilities. So a lot coming there. Test suite, we have test facilities. Orchestration is a big topic at the moment. What is the process of One Record? And then build or buy, should you build your own or should buy? And I think might be hearing a little bit more about it later as well. Lastly, we're rolling out training. First three-day classroom training is next Monday. Now, where do we go? If you look at when we see the next slide, what we'll see is that there are two directions that the momentum is building. One is ongoing development. The data model will be extended. The API will be more powerful. The documentation, the tools, the number of solution providers, everything will grow in one day. But also the innovation that takes place, where we'll have other things that we'll be adding to it. And what we'll see on the next slide is that some of this is far-reaching, which was the term I used earlier. We will be supporting end-to-end logistics, including interfaces with other transport modes. We're already having these discussions. We will have APIs that will support fully autonomous business integration. We will see commercial open source implementations that will really provide a very vast solution landscape for everyone. Orchestration is going to be what we're talking about in the future rather than data models and APIs. On the innovation side, AI development tools, we're implementing them right now. You can imagine that the possibilities are infinite. One Record will prove to be a foundational layer, just like the internet is a foundational layer for traditional communication. We'll see business system layers evolve, which is a great opportunity for everybody in the room here. We will see the emergence of massive logistics transport networks, data networks with powerful analytics and perhaps even quantum computing, which is almost designed to do this sort of thing. And then lastly, this all will turn out to be a very big global knowledge graph, which is something that AI loves. Lots of really interesting stuff happening. And I think you can feel the momentum just by looking at this and describing it. Back to you, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, Henk. I made a few notes. Momentum. So the momentum is there. They are far-reaching. One Record production. And of course, a build or buy. We will be discussing that later on also with Nemil. By the way, if I known that you would have worn that T-shirt, and Nemil and I would have done the same. We also have these T-shirts, but next time then.
Let's go.
Yes, indeed. Let's go to the audience and raise some questions to the audience. We will start with a question. If I can get this, yes, there we go. We raised this question during the last webinar on One Record as well. So I'm curious what the result is now. I cannot see, by the way, the questions. Can you see the question?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay, great. So how visible is this IATA industry initiative within your organization? And answer A, this is not yet on our radar. We are investigating use cases. We have kickstarted an initiative, or we have implemented One Record or are about to. So let's wait a minute before we get all the answers in. In the meantime, I will try to get, okay, there we are. I can now see your answers. So the votes are going very well, over 60%, 70% reaching now. So that's very, very good. Let's share the results. So this is not yet on our radar, is 31% of the votes, and the last time this was 23%. So more people now don't have it on their radar. Where it was 1 in 4, it's now 1 in 3. We are investigating use cases 35%, which is 41%. So it's a little less, and we have kickstarted an initiative 27% today, and that's 20% the last time, so that's positive. And we have implemented one record, or about to, is 7% today, and it used to be 16%. So maybe a little concerning. Let's go to the next one. Which part of one record would you like to understand better? This is more a technical question. Concept, API, data model, or orchestration. I cannot yet see any votes, but I'm sure the system will kick in soon. Yes, there we go. And then in a minute, I will share these results, and if you then can comment on this, if this is what you would expect, maybe. So again, we're reaching the 70% people voting, which is very nice. Thank you for that, or even going over it. So it's still climbing 80% now. Let's share the results. Nemil, can you see the results?
Yes, I can. So I think it looks like a very even split amongst all the 4 answers, which I think is probably reflective even of the previous question. I think different participants are at different stages of the one record journey. I think that's what is reflective of the even split. And the orchestration, which is a little more advanced concept, I think that being the highest, I think that's probably understandable. I think this is something, Bart-Jan, we can look at as an input for the 3rd round of our webinar. We can focus more on some of these concepts.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you, Nemil. Now, let's continue, and let's go to you, Nemil. And explain, please, how to get started with one record.
Thank you, Bart-Jan. So we were trying to look at sort of a framework that can allow more players in the industry to start one record. So if you look at one record as such, it's a fairly complex topic to start with. We kind of broke it down into 7 steps, 7 very simple, straightforward steps. First is to kind of figure out your why, right? Meaning, what do you want to do? And that, in my view, you would start by looking at your current business processes. What are your pain points? What are your industry stakeholders asking for? What are the areas which you can solve through integration, right? So you need to sort of look inwards and see what can really an integration help you with. Once you have determined that, the second step would really to look at how one record can help you. Now, one record is, like Henk said, a rather large piece of technology. It can do quite a lot. But in my view, what you could potentially look at is to look at the industry use cases. What are different participants in the industry working on? Because then you can actually map those to your pain points and see which specific pain points that you have can one record help you with. So then you have your why and what can one record help you with. Now, once you have done that, the next key step is to determine who can you work with. Now, anybody who's done an IT project knows it's fairly complex. If you do an integration project, it's even more complex because the number of unknowns go up, the number of people involved in the project goes up. So it is extremely important that you have a integration counterpart. So if you are, an airline working on a forwarder use case and you need a forwarder partner, if you are working on a ground handler use case being an airline, then you need an ideal partner. So your partner needs to be able to commit and put in the same level of resources that you are expecting to. So it needs to be in line, because we have had instances where the project sort of breaks apart because the partner was not ready, or they are not able to put in the resources required. And once that is done, the next key step is a decision about build versus buy. Henk mentioned this briefly. Now, from an IATA perspective, IATA has given us a reference one record server, which is a Neon server, which came out of one of the IATA hackathons. This is for sure a good starting point, but which allows you to start on your own. Now, many solution providers, ourselves included from Champ, we have our own one record solution, which does a few things on top of the standard one record server, which means you can actually either choose to build yourself, or you can procure one record server from a solution provider like Champ. Now, the next key thing is to define what is success. So for an integration project, you may have different goals, but you need to focus on goals that are important for your organization. You need to align those goals with your stakeholders, and you have to make sure that your stakeholders have signed off on relevant funding. It could be in terms of money, it could be in terms of resources, it could be in terms of time. Whatever is required for the success of the project, you need to make sure your stakeholders have bought into the project. Typically, we have at this stage, most of the one record projects, at least the ones that I've seen, sort of seem to be top down, in the sense that there is a push from the management to make one record success. I'm quite sure as we progress more down the line, there'll be more bottom up projects where certain requirements will force one record to be used. Those will come about, I'm quite sure, in the near future. Now, obviously the next step is the execution itself. This is where the rubber meets the road and you implement your one record. There are various steps here as well. It could be depending on if it's a use case that vendor like Champ has already delivered, then it is very the number of steps would be less. If you're looking at a brand new use case where nobody's really worked on it, then you need to probably look at how to do that in terms of what is the data model and so on and so forth. So execution is obviously the most important step here. And the last but not the least step is, in my mind, doing a retro. So once the project is done, you look at your planned versus actuals. So we have already defined what is success. So at the end of the project, you compare, did you meet all the success metrics? So this then helps educate you, was one record, did it deliver as per what you were looking for? How can you then build on this for future projects? And last but not the least, we have also created a lot of assets that can help you in your one record journey. We have a One Year Connect microsite. We'll talk about One Year Connect in a minute. And we have also created an ebook that can educate you, inform you on a lot of topics about one record. What are some of the key concepts and why you should use one record? Thanks, Bart-Jan.
Thank you, Nemil. So yeah, dear audience, please scan these QR codes. Later in the webinar, we will show them again. And we will also, as part of the follow-up, send you the link to the One Year Connect microsite and also the link to the ebook. You can download it then directly. Now you have to fill in a form if you scan this, but then you have it straight away. So later on in the webinar, you will see the same QR codes. Thank you, Nemil, and thank you also, audience, because the first questions are getting in. I will not raise them now, but we will get back on this later on. So let's go to our next speaker, Andress Lem, Head of Cargo Digital at Cathay Cargo. Could you please explain a bit on One Record from your perspective?
Sure, Bart-Jan. So I want to say Cathay Cargo is proud to say we are ready for One Record. So we want to share our experience and have more companies getting ready for One Record. So this is what we did in the past few years. So I think the first one is to commit that you will actually start doing One Record. So in the previous digital conference last month, we see that more companies are willing to start or they have already started discussion. So this is a good start to have more stakeholders joining in the discussion. So when you start, please, everyone should look at the planning and the data mapping of the One Record. So there are many data fields that were not available in the previous messaging standards. And by looking at that, you will start to think about new use case, things that you could not do in the past. So when you have new ideas, then we can start to think about business justification. Is it going to help your business? Is it going to help your customers? Then with the justification, we can talk to our management, our leadership team to get their buy-in. So I would say that is the very important part. Then we need to really identify use case that will work for your company. So as an airline, our first batch of use case is related to forwarder use case because they are our closest customers. And the next batch that we look at are the GHA use case because they handle our shipment. So we want a smooth communication with these parties. So this is how we as an airline approach this problem. Then we need to talk about change management. So we'll be working with a lot of different teams to enable this kind of use case, no matter it's a discussion or the implementation phase. So change management is very, very important. So when we have the use case in place, then we need to find a partner. So to echo what Nemil said, so each use case will need at least 2 stakeholders who work together. So the first thing is to identify someone who's willing to work with you. So that is the collaboration stakeholder. And each of us will have a corresponding technical solution provider. So we also need to line up the technical teams to do the discussion. Otherwise, nothing will be implemented. So if everything is smooth, then we can start to talk about POCs and implementation timelines. And when you launch something that is successful, then you can talk about the next use case, and we can look back and go through the same cycle again and talk about the next successful use cases. So from the airline perspective, like I said, so we start with some customer-facing use case. So the first batch use case was about forwarders, and I will share later in a moment that we started with the airwheel bill submission and track and trace. So the next batch of use case is really about improving operations. So we work with JHAs, we work with interline partners, and we also need to work with customs. And shipper and consignee is like an extended partner that we work through our freight forwarders. But honestly, we want to be able to share data with all these parties. That's why we will look at all angles to see what operation use case can facilitate better communication with these parties under the One Record framework. So next, I will really want to share 2 use cases that we implemented or are implementing. So the first one is a forwarder use case. So it's about submitting their yearly information to us, and they will be able to get back the track and trace information. So that is similar to the FWB and FHL that is submitted to us today, and we'll send back the FSU from time to time for milestone tracking. So I would say this is a very basic use case that I would recommend if you start to look at it, you can start with this one because this is really the major communication we do as an airline with the forwarders. The second use case is how we communicate with our GHA. So we enable this use case with CHAM together through the cargo spot solution. So Nemil can supplement on this as well. So what we're looking at is to share the booking information with the GHA in a better manner. So in the past, what we're looking at is sharing the confirmed booking at predefined timelines only. So maybe we send 2 to 3 times to our JHA system so that they know what shipments are coming in. But with the one record, what we can do is to share that update real time. And with this idea, we have been able to do this kind of sharing with a GHA that is also using CargoSpot. So I would say these two are very successful use cases that I want to share with the team.
Thank you, Andress. I will get back to this specific topic later on, asking you about the rollout and how that is going and what is planned next. But I do have a question from the audience that ties in what you just mentioned, and Nemil, you could maybe also answer. So one of the questions is, what is the take of one record on the XWB, FWB, the XFWB? What is the take of one record on the FWB?
Yeah, so if I can, but so I think one of the key concepts of one record, it is no longer focused on specific documents, right? So you are able to, even if you look at the use case that Andress mentioned, we are at the moment sharing shipment information from the airline system to the handler system. Now, at this stage, we can practically share any part of the logistics object. So, which means any data which is related to the shipment, as long as it's relevant to the ground handler, we can now send it to the ground handler. Now, we are not restricted by XFWB. XFWB tells you need to send 10, 15, 20 things. But as part of one record, there is no such restriction. We can actually open up and we can share in real time a lot more data between systems.
Okay, thank you. I will raise other questions from the audience later on. There are many, so that's interesting. So in the meantime, let's go to our next speaker, Christian Riege, Chief Technology Officer at Riege Software. Please, Christian.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Let me first introduce our company, because amongst the audience, we might be the least known among the 4 speakers here. We are Riege Software. We're a solution provider for international freight forwarders in air and ocean, both 3PL and 4PL. And we also are a solution provider for customs brokers in Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. We are around for almost 40 years. Next year will be 40 years. And we've been working with Champ for more than 30 years, back when it was still called Traxon. We are up to 150 people worldwide in 7 locations around the globe, and we have exactly one solution, and that is called Scope. It's one system with one record. And as you can see on the next slide, the topic of this webinar is how to get started with one record. And from our perspective, the question boils down to who you are or what company you're representing, and we put that into 2 categories. The first category is how to get started if you're a solution provider. So if you do provide a solution, and the other is for solution consumers who buy, rent, or whatever use your solution for. So on the next slide, I will talk about what it takes to get started if you're a solution provider. And my primary and foremost call to action is to join the community. Joining the community in the beginning is very, very easy, because most of the, or all of the information is available on the web. And it's, as Henk mentioned, it's open source. It's available for everybody to read and to get started. The main starting point is, of course, IATA site onerecord.iata.org. The specifications are on GitHub. And I think if you get the slides later on, you can click on the text and it takes you to the respective webpage. There's a collection of links to one record resources on GitHub by Daniel Döppner of Lufthansa, which is like 50 or 60 different resources. Out of one of the hackathons, there's a great tool, which is called Neon Play, which allows you to play with the one record data model, see where data is, how it is structured and where it is accessible. You can also run your own server. Neon came out of a project funded by the German government, still under active development, and we've been deploying and using that internally in our data center too. And my final call to action would be, if you're really interested in all of this, then you should really join a hackathon. In Istanbul, I think 3 weeks ago in Istanbul, it was the 10th hackathon. Henk mentioned the timeline in the beginning. It started in 2017. We are now in 2024, and I know that the first hackathons were quite rough, but every hackathon built upon what was achieved during the next, and it's a really playful and interactive method of getting to know key players in the industry, to see one record in action, to communicate with other teams, with other peoples. There's executives there, there's hackers there, there's everything in between also, and it's a really nice experience, and I can just recommend it to everybody. Now, if you are a solution consumer, it is very easy. You don't have to do all of that before. You should talk to your solution provider, whether they support one record or not. And if they don't do it, you should consider a provider who does. Our perspective is that one record is really infrastructure. It's plumbing. It's something that should not concern the end user or anything like that. It's something that's just there. It's being used, and we are using it to communicate, or within the air cargo community, we want to use it to achieve a better communication than what we have been using for the last 40 to 50 years, and it's looking really promising going forward. Thank you. I have one slight remark, Bart-Jan. You said that in the beginning that you were concerned that the answers were skewing in a certain direction, that now less people have actually implemented one record than in the last webinar. And I think that a possible explanation is that the audience has widened. So we have a more broad audience, and we bring in new people. And of course, new people are at the beginning of the spectrum, of the beginning of the journey, rather than at the already implemented. Thank you very much.
Exactly. That's a good remark. I was thinking exactly the same. So the ones that joined already, they have already started and they progressed and they're doing their own thing now, hopefully. And it's a marathon, so it's stretched. The timeline is stretched. So, but it's time now to jump on the bandwagon. So please join. So Henk, I see you smiling. You really would like to advertise the Dublin hackathon. So I would like to give you 1 minute now to say something more about it, because we just discussed the hackathons, and we have already committed as Champ to join that hackathon in Dublin. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, and thank you, Christian, for recommending to participate. I absolutely agree. The next hackathon is going to be in Dublin. In fact, it's going to be a slightly different one than in the past. This one is associated with the IATA World Data Symposium, which is a bit like the World Cargo Symposium, but for data, cybersecurity, and AI. And it's a relatively new event. And so we've decided to combine our hackathon with that. And therefore, the focus of this hackathon is going to be, of course, on air cargo and one record, but also on data and AI. So we'll bring in some new stakeholders, which is great, because we really want to go beyond the traditional use cases. We all need to start there, but we want to go beyond that. And so I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a great event. It's a great city, and I'm delighted to have you guys from Champ there. I know that Riege is always there. They're our greatest supporter in this regard. So looking forward to this. Thank you very much, Bart-Jan.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, we in Champ, we choose one IATA hackathon a year and participate and sponsor in that. So thank you, Christian, for sharing your presentation. Talk to your solution provider. That's what it's about. You are a solution provider. We are a solution provider. So audience, please talk to your solution provider. Let's go to you again, audience. And I would like to raise two more questions to you. The last two questions. And here we go. The first question. And this is an important one. We all the panelists spoke about, most of them, about buy or make or buy. So you can either host your own one record infrastructure, make, or have it hosted by a service provider, buy. Which solution is better from your point of view? So at the moment, the way you think about this now, of course, make, buy, or undecided. And hopefully we can also now go to the 80% votes of the audience. And I can already predict, dear panelists, that the undecided will be the winner here, although it's fluctuating.
John, perhaps while this is going on, maybe a comment on this, because there may be, it's both make and buy in many cases. What I've seen, it's something that Nemil said, that most people, when they start, they first try and build or they use an open source. And then at some point they realize that actually they need something of a like the higher caliber. And so in many cases it's make first and then buy, or keep both. I've seen that implementation as well. So it's an interesting, I would love this question and I'm very happy to see the answers.
Yeah, here are the answers. So undecided was buy did catch up with undecided. There was a clear undecided winner, but now it's 40-40%. And make is the not much less than 20%. So this could be interesting for you, Nemil, as a service provider, and Christian, same for you. So
I think, Bhatyan, in my view, the undecided is so high because I think it's sort of linked to the first question, where there are, like Christian was saying, there's so many people who are now coming into One Record, so they are new, they are exploring, so they've, I think, not formed their view on one way or the other. So I think meaning IATA for One Record has been quite open in this regard. So we have both options. It's just up to the participants to choose the way that they are comfortable with. We can support both.
Yeah, and this is an eye opener for the audience on the webinar, how to get started and then decide. So now it's undecided, but after the webinar, of course, they have all decided what to do because they know now what to do. I hope. So the next question, it's more a technical one again. What of these would ease your One Record efforts the most? What of these would ease your One Record's efforts the most? So partners for use cases, support on technical integration, or support on the data model. And I did not put in all of the above because there must be a clear winner. What of these would ease your One Record efforts the most? Partners for use cases, support on technical integration, support on the data model. So the votes are a little less here, which is fine. It's more of a technical question. And I will now share the results. So Nemil, what is your take on this?
So it's sort of partners for use cases seems to be 44, and then support for technical integration seems to be 42. And I think yeah, I think it's a bit surprising actually. So it looks like everybody's struggling to figure out who to work with. Yeah, that's yeah, that's a difficult
Okay,
problem to solve.
let's close this poll then, and let's then discuss who to work with. We go straight again to you. Why Champ, Nemil?
Fantastic. Thank you, Bhatyan. So like I mentioned at the start, we strongly believe that we are an ideal One Record partner. And that's really from three core beliefs from CHAMP, which is one, we are only in air cargo. We are a proven air cargo provider for the last 30 years. We have one of the most connected air cargo ecosystems. We have 200 plus airlines and ground handlers, 65 plus customs, 4,000 plus forwarders. So we have one of the most connected air cargo ecosystems in the world. We are also incredibly proven in terms of technical expertise. we process 20 million airway bills a year. We do 300 messages, 250 million API calls. So we'll be able to extend all of these to build one record solution that works for most folks in the industry. Next, we would like to focus on some of the use cases. The first one is the one that Andress mentioned. This is the one we are working with Cathay and also WFS. So wherein, so traditionally, if you look at the integration between an airline and a ground handler, we use the FBL message, which is a cargo imp FBL message. And these messages are sent closer to departure, and they are sent at a sort of regular interval, maybe 24 hours, 12 hours, which means if you're a ground handler, you get very limited visibility of the shipment information. And from a planning perspective, there are certain challenges. Now, with one record, like we were discussing a bit earlier, there is no restriction. So we are able to sync the booking information immediately. So if an airline receives a booking, the ground handler sees it immediately. If the weight and volume is updated in the airline system, the ground handler sees it immediately. If the booking gets canceled, the ground handler sees it, which means there is real-time visibility and better planning. The second use case, which is, in my view, if there is one use case which is going to really improve one record penetration, it is track and trace. There is incredible demand for knowing the shipment status, and this is something that we are also working with Riege on. So this is how we can send the shipment status from, as I mentioned, we have a large community. We are able to provide shipment status from our community to external providers via the one record format, which of course we are able to meet today's requirement. And as I will explain in the fifth use case, which is related to IoT, we'll be able to in future add more elements like IoT and so on into track and trace.
Nemil, we need to speed up a little bit. I'm sorry for that.
I'm almost done. Yeah, no worries. So message bridging is the third use case. So this is unfortunately the reality. Some players will not be on one record, so we need to be able to convert back and forth from legacy. The fourth one is related to checklists. So all ground handlers presently use checklists. So these are for regulatory purposes to make sure processes are followed. So this, unfortunately, we don't have standard messages at the moment. So we use one record to push the data from a handler to an airline so that the airline has visibility. And the last one is IoT related. So this is brand new. We are working on with different partners. So as you know, IoT is very heavily used, but it's all proprietary data. It is very difficult to share this information. We are leveraging one record to do that. Now, this is our solution, our one record solution. We have branded it as One Neo Connect. So if you look at the middle, we have the Champ community. So this is where we have various players using our solution. So we are able to connect all of these partners within the One Neo Connect community. And on this side, we have the One Record community. So these are provided by either using their own One Record servers or a different solution provider. So we will use the One Record PubSub APIs to connect those communities. And if you're not using One Record, then we will continue to use traditional connections via our CCS and other means to connect everyone. And just to bring it all together, so from a One Neo Connect perspective, there are 4 key benefits. One is speed and simplicity. So we take care of the complexity for you from a one record perspective. We allow you to do integration effortlessly. The complexity is reduced by us. And I think, so I still keep this point from Henk at the last Digital Cargo Conference, which is that one record, we today can shape one record. We have the privilege to shape one record and in the way that we want to, which means it is future ready and we all can participate and make one record a success.
Thank you, Nemil. Yes, so we are on time. So we have 10 minutes left and we have a lot of questions. So let's first ask a question to Christian. do you believe One Record has the potential to facilitate data in other data exchange in other areas of logistics, such as sea freight or road freight, especially as your customers, the forwarders, do all modalities?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a great question. I think the potential is there. The data model supports it already today. It would support road and as well as ocean. There was a hackathon which was actually conducted by the Digital Container Shipping Association. In our internal user conference earlier this year, I had a conversation with Henk and Henning Schleierbach from the Digital Container Shipping Association concerning exactly that. And of course, that would be very helpful to deploy One Record over more modes of transport. But currently, we should focus on the air cargo community and get that rolling before we tackle other ecosystems.
Yeah, thank you. I remember that one because that hackathon was in Amsterdam. I was there. Andress, into this on the e-commerce side, there's so much going on. Is there anything happening on the e-commerce side that you can see as an airline?
I think on the e-commerce side, one of the pain point that we have is we only got the consolidated information from the freight forwarders, and it is a little bit difficult to ensure that the real information provided by the shipper is actually available for customs reporting. So I would say if everyone can use One Record, then we can actually get the real information provided by the shipper. So we also have the risk mitigation to know that the information provided is actually real from the shipper, and we can pass it on to the corresponding authorities accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. So going back to the questions from the audience, there are quite a few GSAs on the audience who ask basically the same. One is, where do you see the GSSA? Question mark. Another one, as a GSSA using CHAMP solutions and software like CargoSpot, TGC, TGS, what are the next steps and how should look like to initiate as a GSA? Who would like to answer that? Henk, Nemil?
Yeah, maybe I will start. So
Yeah.
I think the beauty of One Record is about exchanging data, right? So irrespective of who you are, be it a GSA, an airline, ground handler, essentially we are sharing available data. So for all these use cases, we'll be able to cover, the integration will actually benefit more real time, more accurate, wider data set from the originator to the next step. So I think that these One Record will improve all of these.
Good. Christian, going back to you again from the audience, do you have anything in production concerning One Record?
Yes, we do have something in production, well, in pre-production, but we are working with production data. So we make the shipment records available and we take back the tracking events. It's not connected to the live systems yet, but we are already taking live data from our production systems, sharing it with an airline, and the airline shares the tracking events back. I would like to make one very small comment. It's actually, One Record is not about sending data throughout the world. It's making data accessible and storing it at the relevant location or at the origin of the data. So we don't have an FSU coming or an event coming into our system and then being forwarded to the forwarder as today, but rather the airline says, hey, something happened on the shipment, and we can then pull the information and pull it back. And as that gets updated, we can pull more. So it's not about sending, it's about making information available, just like if you visit a website and you share the link to the website with somebody else instead of putting it into a PDF and sending the PDF somewhere else.
Yes, thank you. So Andress, again from the audience, I have a question for Mrs. Lam. How do you see the role of the RFS provider with One Record? What connections, message types are essential, and do you have implemented these? So let's answer the question. Is there any communication with trucking companies at the moment?
So at the moment, we haven't implemented anything with the trucking companies for one record, but we do have other exchange that is in progress. So I think traditionally we also talk about milestones. So trucking milestones is something we are working on. So one record can possibly help, but the first thing is the trucking company needs to have a technical provider that can actually do one record. Then we can also do the same kind of status updates and sharing with the trucking companies.
Yes,
That would be a
indeed.
good use case.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So reach out to your service provider or make or buy would also be applicable here. Henk, during the DCC in Geneva recently, you mentioned that you would be retiring. And this is your baby. So how will this now move on without you? So aren't you a bit sad that you won't see the growing up of your
No, I'm
baby?
not sad. I have two other babies. One is 26 and one is 28. And my
Exactly.
job has been to get them ready for this world so that they can manage without me. And One Record is exactly like that. I think it's in really, really good hands, including the people on this panel. You've been driving this, you've been leading this. And honestly, the biggest favor I can do to the project is to pull away from it and let it evolve on its own. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That I can relate to that. It's like a baseball match. There's now a relief pitcher coming on the pitch. You're the main pitcher. You have done your job, and now you step back, and the relief pitcher finishes the game to the ninth inning. Okay. Okay.
Perhaps,
There.
John, unless there's some urgent questions, there was the question from the GSA. And I think that was interesting because GSA or GSSA, and there's others, there's small forwarders, there's all sorts of companies around the world that are wondering, if they've heard about One Record, what happens to me? What happens to this? I think a lot of the One Record stuff happens behind the scene. It is not actually necessarily in front of you. So a GSSA that uses one of your systems probably won't see any difference for a while. The data may be shared more real time and more accurately, higher quality, but it happens behind the application. At some point, though, we'll get to where Andress was commenting and also Nemil, is that you'll get new use cases that weren't possible before. So my response will be, you will see that your tools become richer. You'll have more capabilities, but you yourself don't have to worry about the details of the data sharing. And I think that will be the case for at least 80% of all the users in the industry, is that it will happen behind the applications and the applications will get richer. This is where you see the real impact.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, let's proceed now. There are many more questions, and we will get back to you on these via email. So let's summarize the webinar today. So we started with Henk on a high-level introduction, how One Record is shaping up the cargo industry and the storyline and evolution and where we are going. Then from our partners, Cathay Cargo, sharing on how to get started with two sample use cases. Riege software, getting started as a solution provider or consumer, and the call to action to talk to your solution provider. So that is a very smart decision to do that. Then Nemil, why Champ? Why you need to partner with why you need a partner to take care of the One Record complexity, and a call to join One Neo Connect and let Chem be the One Record expert to help you. And again, here you see the QR codes. You can scan them now and visit the One Neo Connect microsite or download the One Record ebook. You will receive it via email as well as follow-up, both the attendees of the webinar, but also the absentees. If you didn't join or you were not able to join, you will still get the links and the pack, the slide pack, and the information that you need. So then I would like to thank the panelists. Thank you, Nemil. Thank you, Andress, Christian, and Henk. Thank you very much for your contribution. And there will be a third webinar on One Record in Q2 next year, maybe Q1, end of March, otherwise beginning of Q2. And then we'll see the status where we are with One Record in 2025. And also, audience, thank you very much for attending this webinar. We look forward to seeing you again during the next one. Until then, thank you very much and bye-bye.
Thank you, Bart-Jan, as well.
Thank you, Bart-Jan, for organizing
Thank
this.
you, everyone.
It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.